Kia ora, talofa, namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the NicheCast. We're from thenichecache.com, where you can read about Aotearoa sporting matters. Got plenty of deep dives on the website right now. We've got a Kiwi-NRL spotlight on Jordan Ricky, the young Bronco from Christchurch. We've got 5 funky movers in the domestic cricket contracts. We've got all the information you need to know about all of the Black Ferns, the Black Ferns Sevens, and all the youngsters entering their first season of NRLW footy. We've got, are they called the Aussie Whites? Is that what you're going? Under 23 New Zealand men's football team, otherwise known as the Aussie Whites?
Yeah, they go by Ollie Whites, but I try to use that a little bit more sparingly than I would say All Whites because I think it's a little bit of a silly nickname. But you got to call them something. So the Ollie Whites, yep, they're in action.
We don't need to call them something. We can just go with the New Zealand men's under 23 football team with the New Zealand
That's a
Olympic
long
men.
thing to say, yeah, but
New
the
Zealand
Olympic men
Olympics, yeah.
football.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Olympic men's footy is under 23, and they are otherwise known as the Aussie Whites. And we've got an Olympic preview for them on the website. We've got a Football Ferns preview on the website. We've got the Flying Kiwis live on the website. And if you really care, you can go back and read some Warriors previews and stuff like that as well. If you're really into depressing rugby league stuff, it's there for you. Otherwise, we've got lots of Kiwi-NRL content as per usual. All of that is available on our website, theniche-cache.com. But if you can't read good, don't worry, because we're here with the podcasts. And we've got this Tuesday podcast. It's a big old podcast. It's the NicheCast. We just go deep, super deep. We get lost in the mangroves of Aotearoa sport. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hit us up with a like, comment, subscription. Otherwise, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify. And also, you can do a review, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment, whatever you want to do to help the fellas out. We're doing our best to broadcast Aotearoa sporting excellence, and there's a bunch of ways you can hit us up. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, podcasts, and of course, the newsletter. If you can't read good, newsletter might not be the spot for you, but hopefully we can help you read better. And for everyone who can read good, make sure you're signed up to our newsletter via Substack, thenichecache.substack.com. That comes out every Monday and Friday, full, chock-a-blocker, jam-packed, flush with Aotearoa sporting matters. Because if you didn't know by now, that's all we do. Just Aotearoa sport. We love Aotearoa, we love Aotearoa sport, and we are here for another fabulous podcast. If you do want to support us straight up the guts, you can join the Patreon whānau, patreon.com/EL NicheCache, our NicheCache on Patreon. That is where you can access the subscriber podcast. And if you don't want to get up all in the Substack, the newsletter just pops up on Patreon the next morning, so all the stuff you need is there on Patreon. But if you are signed up to Substack, please consider upgrading to a paid subscription. Then you can access the subscriber podcast as well. And if you want to donate to the cause, you can hit us up on Buy Me a Coffee. Shout out to that subscriber podcast. We did one last Thursday, fresh around the domestic cricket contracts. So that was good fun, trying to make sense of everything that was happening there. And that is a bonus podcast strictly for the folks supporting us, funding our mahi through Patreon and with paid Substack subscriptions. So we do this monster niche cast on a Tuesday. We bounce back on a Thursday with a subscriber podcast, which is VIP bonus section. A nice little corner of the mangroves. The estuary just dips into the corner. That's where the subscriber podcast is. And I imagine this Thursday we might be previewing another Warriors game. We might be reflecting on some Aotearoa Olympic stuff that has happened over the next few days and anything else that appears on our radar. We always start our podcast with a dose of mindfulness. What do you got, old mate?
Got a little something here from the great William Blake, endlessly fascinating bloke that he was from way back when. He said, "The thankful receiver bears a plentiful harvest."
The thankful receiver bears a plentiful harvest. It's always a bit tricky, especially for Kiwis. It's always a bit tricky to receive with pure gratitude and grace because we don't really like to accept things. It's like
Yeah,
when
we get
someone
embarrassed.
when someone's trying to buy you a coffee, you're like, no, 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 I gotta pay you, no, 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 I gotta do it. And like, oh no, you can just accept it. You can just be grateful, and then you might get a bountiful harvest.
Yeah, and you buy someone else that coffee next time, you just pass it along the line. Yeah, it's very much a gratitude type mindfulness there, isn't it? It's one of those ones of if you have an open mind, but also an open heart to things, you find that everything is a lot bigger and grander and more rewarding and more feels more blessed and the bountiful harvest. It'll follow you, but only if you come with that kind of mindset, which I guess is like the harvest is no different, is it? Your perception of the harvest is different. And suddenly what might, if you look at it from the wrong perspective, that might seem I don't know, insufficient. If you look at it from a position of gratitude, well, everything is a bonus in that case, everything is a blessing, and your harvest becomes bountiful.
That's something I struggle with is being grateful for what you have instead of
Yeah.
being annoyed for what you don't have. And it's a classic glass half full, glass half empty type of situation because you can look at the same thing and be like, oh, I don't have this. Oh, my jar is half empty. But then you can be grateful for the stuff that you actually have, and that might lead to more abundance, more bountiful harvests. The New Zealand Olympic team, they will be hoping for a bountiful harvest of medals because the Paris Olympics starts this week. This was in our Monday newsletter, little Olympic menu. So we'll keep you updated what's happening every newsletter. And up until next Friday, we've basically got football and sevens rugby. The Ollie Whites, they are playing Thursday morning by the looks of it. Then we've got a full run through of men's sevens games and the football women, the football Ferns. They are playing on Friday morning. So those are 3 a.m. games. That's a good little time slot there. Rise and shine for some Aotearoa football. We will be previewing those games later in the podcast in the football section, so stay tuned for that. But what's your Olympic vibration like? A couple days out from the start of the Paris Olympics. Any Kiwi athletes you've been thinking about? What have you been pondering?
Nothing specific, weirdly. Like I don't know, the Olympics is such a big dramatic event where everything happens within 2 weeks. It's almost like I'm trying to get it's not a matter of trying to get fizzed up for it because it's the Olympics. Like that takes care of itself. I'm trying to get prepared for it. I'm trying to get like up to scratch on what I need to know, but I also just find it such a daunting task when even if you're only trying to track the New Zealanders as we are, where it's like there's so many athletes, there's so many sports, and you almost just you almost like can't prepare for it. You just have to wait for it to start happening and just react as things unfold. And so I'm trying to keep that mindset. I'm trying to keep in a sort of like um I'm stretched out, I'm hydrated, I'm ready to go, but the whistle hasn't gone for kickoff yet. So I don't want to I don't want to exert myself too much before the actual game starts. You know what I mean?
And it's all of that's pretty difficult to stay on top of
Yeah.
when the All Blacks are playing. a lot of really important sport going on there. So I feels you, and be interesting to see how like this week we got a bit of a slow start with the football, with the sevens rugby, and then I imagine once the weekend hits, this must be the pre 2 week phase
The preamble, yeah,
where like a couple of the sports
the
get sta-
forward.
yeah, they get started before the 2 week cycle. So I imagine by the weekend, then is it swimming or athletics that is usually first?
Athletics is normally second week, so probably swimming. This Saturday morning is the opening ceremony. So the football and I think it's just men's sevens by the look of it is happening outside of, like you say, outside of that 2 week window because you can't fit a whole tournament of that stuff in 2 weeks. They spread out a little bit beforehand so that they're good to go. Yeah, it looks like swimming starts on the day one. There's a fair bit of swimming, a bit of rowing. Women's doubles tennis will be on Saturday night. A little bit of equestrian as well. So yeah, there's how we get underway. And athletics should be second week normally because they like to finish with a big kabang with the 100-meter sprints and all that kind of stuff and the relays and whatnot.
Is she playing in that women's doubles tennis?
Yeah, Erin Routliffe and Lulu Sun are our only tennis reps at the Paris Olympics, but it's a pretty good pairing. Erin Routliffe is now the number one ranked doubles women's player in the world, and Lulu Sun just exploded onto the scene as a singles player during Wimbledon, but also is clearly someone who has a game that will suit the doubles format as well because she is aggressive, she hits the ball hard, she serves well, and loves to get to the net and volley. So they might be an outside shot of a medal, to be fair. We got a tennis medal last time with Michael Venus and Marcus Daniel, and that was our first tennis medal since like Tony Welding 95 years ago, or it can't be 95, 96 or 94 or something a very long time ago. Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll go 2 for 2 then, and the very next event.
I imagine Lulu's son being a lefty is also good for the doubles combination. If you got a
Yeah,
righty, a
that's a good
lefty,
point too.
cricket, rotate the strike, get a righty on strike,
Yeah.
get the lefty on strike, make it difficult for the bowler. I can imagine how that is applicable for the tennis realms as well. So we will be obviously keeping a close look over the Olympics as we roll through the next few weeks. We've got 2 newsletters every week. We've got the One Big Podcast. We've got a subscriber podcast. We got the website. We're going to be here. Not necessarily we're here for all your Olympic needs. We're just here for your Aotearoa sporting needs. And the Olympics is part of the Aotearoa sporting menu right now. One organization that is not part of the Aotearoa sporting menu is the Aussie Breakers. And I want to throw this out there to juxtapose it against something that happened, I think it was on Sunday, might have been Saturday. When was that Canterbury versus Taranaki game? That was Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday afternoon, evening-ish.
So we have a New Zealand Breakers, sorry. We have an Aussie Breakers team that is based in New Zealand. But they don't have many Kiwis. And we've been following this for a couple years now. And it's reached it's peak Aussie Breakers. It's a low point for the New Zealand Breakers, but it's peak Aussie Breakers because they've signed another Aussie, and they have one Kiwi on their roster. That is Sam Meninga. But they do have, shout out to the Aussie Breakers, they do have a couple Kiwis on their development list with Carlin Davison, Max Darling, and Alex McNaught. But what do we know about those lads with the Aussie Breakers? They don't play. So we're not too fussed about them at the moment. It but we are tracking the Aussie Breakers because it's juxtaposed against the Warriors and the Phoenix as well. We've got the Aussie Breakers moving away from Kiwi basketball talent at the same time that the Warriors and Phoenix are going all in on embracing young Kiwi talent. Now, the Breakers do have 3 development players, but I was thinking about this last night. The Breakers don't have an academy. Like, they might have some sort of junior setup on the North Shore, but they certainly don't have a comprehensive academy like the Wellington Phoenix. And the Warriors don't have an academy, but they've got an under-17 team, they've got an under-19 team, they've got an under-21 team, they've got a reserve grade team, and they have a NRL team. Yes, I've talked many times that the Warriors have 5 young Australian halves in their system, so why aren't we calling them the Aussie Warriors? Well, that's 5 young Aussie halves across 5 teams, and the rest of the dudes are Kiwis from Aotearoa, from all around Aotearoa. And that's the same thing for the Wellington Phoenix. So those 2 organizations have set up junior pipelines, academies, and in the next few years, like the Wellington Phoenix, they've already got the women's academy. I'd imagine the Warriors women's junior system is starting up now already, ahead of their return to NRLW. The Breakers do have development players from Aotearoa, but I don't think they're doing much of their development because those dudes are playing NBL basketball. They're doing everything else outside of the Breakers. And the Breakers, actions over words, they are ignoring Aotearoa. And if you're going to do that, then you become the Aussie Breakers. So shout out to the Aussie Breakers at a time when we just had an exceptional game of NBL basketball, New Zealand NBL, not Aussie NBL where the Aussie Breakers play. And what I was observing in Canterbury's win over Taranaki were, like, Taylor Britt, he was running the show as he always does. Who does he play? He didn't play for the Breakers, did he, in the NBL, Australian NBL?
No, he came up as a development player with Perth Wildcats and then didn't get a senior contract, so he's just been back playing only for Canterbury and a bit of Tall Blacks since then for the last couple of years, but, you know.
Because that's the other thing. Everyone was moaning about how all these New Zealand rugby league players don't play for the Warriors. We've got to keep our talent at home. Well, we're moaning about the Aussie Breakers at a time when a lot of Australian NBL teams have Kiwi dudes on their roster. They have them as development players, top tier players. They're all there. I digress. Max Darling, I saw him shoot a nice 3-pointer for Canterbury. Now, he is a development player for the Breakers, just shout out there. But he's not necessarily a youngster right now. And by youngsters, the shot making of those youngsters in that last phase of Canterbury's epic finals victory over Taranaki, like Flynn Cameron, just dropping bombs from 3-point. Carlin Davison, shout out, Breakers development player, big honour there. He had an epic shot to, I think it was like tie the game, big fadeaway from the baseline, that was crazy. And then Kaya Isaac didn't shoot any 3-pointers or any match-winning shots, but he made a couple of free throws at a very important phase for Canterbury as well. And I've heard you talk about Kaya Isaac before. Tobias Cameron? He was playing for Taranaki. He came on late in that game, I think because Flynn Cameron fouled out. My point here is that NBL Finals game was an amazing game. Canterbury won, and there were young Kiwis making massive shots in the closing minutes of a double overtime game. So those closing minutes actually might have been like 20 minutes.
There were a lot of closing minutes when you get to double overtime, yeah.
But to me, that reflected the status of basketball in New Zealand. And I don't know, there's, what did we have? We had that Oscar Goodman,
Oscar
NB,
Goodman, the under
uh,
17s, yeah.
yeah, and he was one of the 5 best players of the under 17 World Cup. And we've also got Julius Halaifanua, who is chasing a NBA opportunity alongside good man Oscar Goodman in the Australian kind of basketball academy setup.
Well, it's the NBA's global academy, but it's the Australian sort of edition of it. You know, they have a few posted around the world, and those two guys, Oscar Goodman and Julius Halaifanua, are the two Kiwi guys involved in that setup, which is in like I think Canberra. I think it's Canberra, and they train also out of the Aussie Institute of Sport.
So that's happening. We've got New Zealand NBL flush with young Kiwis on the rise. We've got Aussies signing Kiwis for the Australian NBL. And then you've got the Breakers completely neglecting New Zealand basketball. So shout out to the Aussie Breakers. I don't want to talk about them anymore. I want to get your thoughts on Canterbury versus Taranaki and where that leaves us for NBL Finals basketball here in the basketball metropolis of Aotearoa.
You do get me thinking there about because one other thing is the Wellington Phoenix have a reserve team in the National League, men's and women's. The Auckland FC team that's coming up soon next year, they will have a reserve team in the Northern League and probably in the National League as well, I would imagine. The Breakers don't do any of that. I've not heard for a long time any kind of whisperings about the Breakers trying to set up a women's team or even getting a reserve type team in the Tauihi or anything like that. They're begging for teams in the Tauihi at the moment. They're bringing in a team from India to play in the NBL and Tauihi next year. Why don't the Breakers just do something, you know? No, that's not happening. There's nothing like that. And even just look at Auckland FC. I know there's existing Phoenix fans like to moan about Auckland FC, but if you look at them from a clean slate of the types of players that they're signing, it's good, talented, up-and-coming Kiwi footballers as well. Like, they've been super impressive the way they're putting their roster together, and also just quietly hiring a coach who he may not be a New Zealander, but at least he understands the A-League and has been around that team for a long time, rather than someone who's never coached a senior professional team before, only a couple years out of retirement and completely unproven, and you have all these other candidates from around here who could have been whatever. It's just there's so many of these different angles that the Breakers are just openly neglecting and then telling us this, because that's the one thing you can neglect it and say, okay, we're a professional organization, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't like it, but I understand it. You're trying to win games or whatever. But then they openly lie to our faces by saying, we have a vision for growing the sport of basketball in New Zealand. Like, well, if you do, it's not one that I can see. It's not one I share. Certainly, it's just insanity. Like, an important thing you said earlier was a bit about actions over words, because the Breakers always have words. The Breakers always say what people want to hear, and then they do the opposite. And the Aussie Breakers thing is a new development because they haven't had like 6 Australians on their roster before up to this point. I think this will be a new record. But they have neglected New Zealand basketball for several years. Like, this has been a trend that's been growing basically since this ownership's been in place. That's not new. The influx of Australians, perhaps, but that's insanity. However,
Wait, just on that, because a key detail here, anyone who has any connection to grassroots sports in New Zealand, anyone who's entrenched in the sporting landscape of New Zealand knows that basketball is booming. Basketball is one of the biggest, fastest growing sports in New Zealand. School tournaments, age group tournaments, players in America, college systems, players in the world, professional leagues, the talent coming through, the engagement, the participation is going crazy. That's why we have basketball in our big 4 of sports we cover. So you've got so you got the Breakers doing what they're doing at a time when New Zealand basketball is booming separate to the Breakers. That's what makes it even crazier and even more delusional about the NBL Finals.
Yeah, well, also when you've got an owner who calls basically all the shots for the Breakers, and he doesn't live in New Zealand and doesn't seem to participate in any of this stuff, he misses the train. He's it's not a surprise that he's not on board when he's actually not paying any attention and is nowhere near and seems to have completely different ideas. And who knows what his bloody vision entails, but it seems to not be any of this.
He's not on the train. He's missed the train, but he also doesn't know that there's a walker.
There's your problem. There's the problem. He's out there. Wrong mode of transport. He's never going to get where he wants to go. If a second, because we've just got a second A-League team, they every now and then they talk about the possibility of a second NRL team in New Zealand. Like if they started an NBL franchise in Christchurch, got Judd Flavel to coach it, like Taylor Britt's your first signing. You get a few of these other guys that are hanging around. Ruben Tarangi goes there. A few of these other sort of solid Tall Blacks-esque players who apparently are just not good enough for the Breakers because they'd rather sign an Aussie prospect who averaged 10 points on less than 40% shooting per game in college last season, and what was his 5th year as well. So, he went back for a bonus year and still didn't pop it. If that happened, if there was like a Canterbury Rams NBL franchise, the Breakers would disappear. Like, because could they even survive? Like, they wouldn't get anything outside whatever the walk-up happens to be in Auckland. Like, no one else in the country is going to support a team that has one New Zealander versus a team that would have a whole bunch of them and actually play with the kind of, spirit and integrity you hope for from a Kiwi professional basketball team. Like, they would the Breakers would be bankrupt and within a couple of years if that happened, because they would not be able to compete for the rest of the country's attention. But as it stands, they're all alone, and they seem to get away with that for now. But I'm sure I'll have to write about this at some point, because this is we've had the coaching stuff. Now we've got like might just wait for the last local spot to be signed. I don't know, just in case. But yeah, it's been brewing for a little while, and I think they need another bit of they need another little takedown at some point. I think it can't go on like this,
NBL Finals, NBL Finals, NBL Finals.
NBL Finals, we have, the thing that stuck with that incredible, outstanding, just entertaining game is how, I swear this happens every year. Like every year, the NBL brings a game that's at least this good with a finish at least that dramatic. And I don't know how, you beat that. You can watch, I don't know, the NBA Finals weren't that entertaining at any point in the last season. They didn't compete with that. It's obviously not the same caliber. It's not the same standard, and that's often something that people talk about when they shrug off domestic sports as in favor of big, flashy, expensive foreign sports, or sporting leagues rather, is like, well, the standard's not as good. I'm thinking, well, kind of that is irrelevant. Like, is it an entertaining product? And often when it's less, you often get that thing where World Cup games and football just aren't as entertaining as other things, because there's too much on the line. There's too much money involved. The players are too good. They cancel each other out, kind of thing. I just, for this reason and many others, I just love watching these domestic Aotearoa leagues, and the NBL is up there with any of them in terms of just like drama and entertainment, and the Kiwi player flavor as well. Because like you said there, it wasn't Elijah Mini hitting all the shots, the import for Taranaki. It was Flynn Cameron hits a buzzer-beating 3-pointer off balance, like basically, and what probably wasn't quite the how the play was designed either. He just throws it up and he swishes that thing to take it into OT. It's Carlin Davison hitting the baseline fadeaway. It was supposed to be Carlin Davison on the very last play of the game as well. They were trying to throw a little lob pass to him because they only had 0.2 seconds left, and this was for the victory after Lockie Ulbrich had thrown one down under the hoop for the Canterbury Rams, which was, that's an Aussie import there, so it's not a Kiwi thing, but that hell of a pass from Taylor Britt to find him, and also the patience, the experience from Taylor Britt not to panic and throw an earlier thing, because that sort of broke down the way it ended up for Lockie Ulbrich, but also Lockie Ulbrich, the way he screened Carlin Davison out of the play on that very final one as well, I think is not to be underestimated either, because that was huge. But that was a play designed to get a lob to Carlin Davison, which would have been the third buzzer beating shot of the like three in a row, the Taranaki Airs, and they're not designing it for their imports, they're designing it for their Kiwi dudes. And those Kiwi dudes were making those shots two times out of two. They didn't get to the shot the third time. Taylor Britton played plenty of big shots himself, like Max Darling through that game, shot 4 of 7 from deep. Walter Brown shot 4 of 7 from deep. Both of those two had probably their two best games of the season. Like, this is playoff basketball, and it's like the players you want to see dominate. Like, you need your strong imports. You expect those strong imports to be pretty decisive in these kind of performances, but you also hope for the Kiwi dudes to get their big moments. And this game was just big moments from Kiwi dudes across the board. Like, everyone had something. It was fantastic. I love that stuff.
I did forget about your mate Walter Brown. He was pretty impressive as well. The one player I am curious about is Flynn Cameron. Speaking of lefties, Lulu's son's a lefty. I believe Flynn Cameron was lefty as well. Bit of James Harden about him. Bigger body, lefty, great shooter. You know, crafty, not overly explosive, fast, but he always gets in the right spots to make his shots. What's Flynn Cameron up to? He won't be playing any more NBL basketball because Canterbury won that, and I believe they are going straight into the final against...
We'll find out on Wednesday. It's
Right.
Auckland Tuatara versus Franklin Bulls after the Franklin Bulls demolished the Wellington Saints. I didn't see that coming. I thought it would be a close game, and I thought the Saints might edge it. Maybe the Bulls would edge it, just depending on whether the Saints went ballistic with their scoring or not, because they're a team that shoots a whole bunch of threes. The Saints shot 3 of 31 from deep in that game. Meanwhile, Franklin shot better than 50%. I think it was or just under, something like that. No, I think it's 15 of 29, so just over 50% from three-pointers themselves. You just don't get three-point disparities like that. One team shot less than 10% and one team shot better than 50%. That's the game right there. And it was. That's how it went. But yeah, that game's on Wednesday night, Auckland versus Franklin. Bit of a Tamaki Makaurau derby there to see who will go and face the Canterbury Rams in Christchurch. It must be, because they would have been the top seed in Christchurch in the decider on Sunday afternoon. As for Flynn Cameron, well, Flynn Cameron is one of the many exciting Kiwi players to emerge out of the college basketball scene in recent years who didn't sign with the Breakers. Instead, he went and signed with Melbourne United, and he had a multi-year contract there, so he's back. He will be back alongside Shea, the ideal role model for a player like him. He will be back alongside Rob Lowe, who's unretired again to go back to Melbourne United for a full season this time. That's 3 of the most fun Kiwi basketballers all on that Melbourne United roster, which is 3 times as many senior rostered players as the Breakers have right now. So I'm really struggling to think of any reason why I shouldn't just watch Melbourne United games every week instead of Breakers games.
What are you looking forward to with this Franklin versus Auckland Tuatara matchup? As you said, Battle of Tamaki Makaurau, Franklin Bulls just south of Auckland, based in Pukekohe. Auckland Tuatara. Auckland Tuatara closely affiliated with the Breakers, but not quite close enough to get the bad juju. They're part of the same...
They're not even really that affiliated. They're just in the same area.
That's an issue, but it's all right. It's all right. I'm not going to hold that against the Auckland Tuatara. But what are you looking forward to? Any matchups, any key players, anything that we need to watch out for? Wednesday night, NBL Finals game, Tuatara versus Franklin Bulls, with the winner to go down to Canterbury and play the Canterbury Rams.
Actually, when I think about it, like the Tuatara starting 5, which is the most interesting starting 5 in the league, because they did this thing where they just spent all their salary cap on getting the best players that they could. Don't even really have an import other than Cam Glidden, and then just back their local talent to come in and chip away off the bench and do enough, but give big minutes to their starters, which is like who we got there? Corey Webster, Rob Lowe, Cam Glidden, Tom Vodanovic, and Ruben Tarangi, which, when I think about it, talking about Breakers affiliations, like all five of those players are ex-Breakers who no longer play for the Breakers, and at least a couple of them seem to leave the Breakers with something akin to bad blood, or at least maybe not happy feelings. You know what I mean? Like this, I don't know that there's a lot of love lost between those players necessarily in the thing. Like I'm thinking Corey Webster obviously had some shenanigans when he left. Some of that was his fault, to be fair, but also like Rob Lowe. There's a lot of these signs. We talk about the Breakers not signing Kiwi players, and then you also look at the Kiwi players they have had who all seem to want to leave, most recently being Finn Delaney and Isaiah Liafo. So that's another side to this idea that I hadn't really thought about, but now that that pops into mind now suddenly as well. But the Auckland Tuatara looked like they had the best roster last year to win the league. Didn't quite win the league. Looked like they might have had the best roster this year to win the league. And they're very much in contention. But the Canterbury Rams have been the best team throughout the season. So they are the favourites, even though they double overtime to get through that incredible semi-final. But I also felt like Taranaki were the team that had the best chance of upsetting either the Rams or the Tuatara as well coming in, because they just have those, they have dudes like Flynn Cameron and Carlin Davison who could just do crazy things. And Elijah Minnie single-handedly set them up to victory in their play-in game, or their first round playoff game, whatever you want to call it, against Nelson, it must have been, where he just shot like he made 9 of his first 10 shots, scored 30 points, and just blew them out of the water, and they were able to play from in front the whole way. That Tuatara team is going to be tough to beat, but the Franklin Bulls have, like, the way they demolished Wellington in the previous round is obviously confidence. It's obviously like signs of a good, strong team that hasn't upset capability about them. It would be an upset, but it is possible. Sam Timmins will have to have a big game, obviously, going up against Mr. Rob Lowe. Sam Timmins, another ex-Breaker, wasn't wanted by the Breakers. They released him. He went and had a season with Sydney last year. Didn't really play much, though, because he was at the bottom of their roster and Sydney had a bad season. He's actually just signed to go play in Japan for next season. Him and Dan Fotu have both signed in with Japanese clubs, interestingly. So that's a nice little wee outlet there. Like Ethan Rusbatch has had some very good games for them. Luther Muhammad is their main import. He is like MVP caliber. He's been outstanding. So there's dudes there that can definitely tip up the apple cart there. But I think the Auckland Tuatara are the favourites, and I don't expect a double overtime classic, but it is the NBL, so it's possible we might just get another double overtime classic.
And the Tuatara have 2 exceptional youngsters, Charlie Dalton and Aiuli.
Yeah, Braden Aiuli.
Braden Aiuli.
I mean, that's just 2 of them. Like they're the 2 exceptional youngsters, but there's some pretty good fellas in and around them as well.
I mentioned Wiley last time. He was apparently like 17 years old playing for the Tuatara as a wee lad who held his own. Like, he had some mana, he had some like grit on the court that helped him keep that role. But if the Tuatara have Aiuli and Charlie Dalton coming off their bench, that is crazy, because those dudes were damn good when the Tall Blacks were away, and they basically took control of the team and did so pretty well. So I'm going to be looking out for those 2, Aiuli and Charlie Dalton.
Yeah, they had a couple of guys from the under-17s as well who are sort of loosely affiliated with the Tuatara. Like, the Auckland setup is the strongest in the country. Like, the Auckland high school basketball scene is extremely powerful, and a lot of these dudes have been, like, this is what I'm saying about the Tuatara. They spend all their salary cap on their starting 5 because they know they have youngsters who can come in and chip in. Tutaha Cooper's there as well. Josh Ledger's there. I think it's Jackson Kiss is one of the under-17s dudes who's around the you probably won't see very many, if any, minutes from those guys in a semi-final. I think they'll stick to a 7 or 8 man rotation there, which will be those starting 5 and a bit of Uli and Dalton, but maybe a bit of Nick Barrow as well. I don't know, but that's you don't have to when it comes to those types of players, you don't have to look at like, are they coming in and hitting a couple 3-pointers? Are they coming in and taking 5, 6 shots? They're not going to get that. Like not on a team that has Corey Webster and Tom Vodanovich and all these like Cam Glidden. They take the shots because they're experienced professionals who will probably make those shots. But it's just whether those guys even get minutes at all is the sign of like players, like, teenagers getting minutes in the NBL alone tells you this dude is a high quality, like a high caliber, high quality prospect. And I did, when after that under 17 World Cup, I did look at in one of the newsletters. I did go through some of that. I haven't got it on hand, but there were a few guys from that squad who have been getting some decent minutes throughout this season. Like they have been getting on the court, and you might be the fifth option out of five on the court at any given time, but it's just being there at all is the presence. And yeah, I mean that's an under 17 squad. So those guys are still at high school to be getting those opportunities. So again, like the booming nature of Kiwi basketball.
Well, let's just get the Auckland Tuatara into the NBL, into the Australian NBL. How about that?
Yeah, why not?
Because the way they're doing it is the way the Warriors are doing it, is the way the Phoenix are doing it. So shout out to Auckland Tuatara, and I'm sorry for even like putting you in the same estuary as the New Zealand Aussie Breakers, because you're actually doing it the right way. So shout out to the Tuatara. Hope your third eye is open, because the Tuatara was a big doggy of the third eye mysteries. Ooh. I've been kind of dreading this because I just don't know like what to say with the Warriors. It's obviously they had a loss to the Raiders, and it's just hard to be too down on the Warriors when like the effort's there, the attitude's there, the intensity's there, but things get in the way of the Warriors winning right now. Our newsletter yesterday, the Monday newsletter, was titled Dark Forces, and you might think it's the dark forces of the universe that are getting in the way of the Warriors winning, because so the Raiders game, obviously goal kicking was a major factor. Yeah, no shit. It was the third choice kicker doing the kicking. Adam Pompey's out. Tane Tuaupike's out. Chanel Harris-Tavita's the kicker, and he is probably the fourth string kicker in the whole Warriors club because Sean Johnson's at the top of the charts. So it's very hard to bank on your goal kicking to win you a game when you're dealing with your third string goal kicker in that contest, and your fourth, maybe fifth best kicker in the club. So that's unfortunate, but the stinkest thing is it's back to back against the Bulldogs, and we've talked about that matchup a few times. Back three, kick returns, plays one, plays two, plays three with the wingers, steaming off the back fence, getting behind the ruck. Like that is a fundamental element of Warriors footy. And I have never seen an NRL game where both wingers and the fullback leave the field. Now, there's other stuff that happened in that loss against the Bulldogs, which was a 1-point loss. The penalty with Tamaita Martin getting smashed late. All sorts of different things happening there. But just in the rotten luck of losing players to injury in the back line, this is where things get iffy. It's all in the back line. So you lost your two wingers and your fullback against the Bulldogs. You lose by 1 point. Like, it was an admirable effort. Commendable stuff from the Warriors. Against the Raiders, Tane Tuaupike, he plays 8 minutes and he's gone. Adam Pompey plays half a game. He's gone. So they lost 3 out of their 5 outside backs in the Bulldogs game. They lost 2 out of their 5 outside backs in the Raiders game, both of whom are the goal kickers. And if you list the players who left the field, Shans Nickel-Klokstad, Dylan Watene-Zelezniak, Marcelo Montoya, Tane Tuaupike, Adam Pompey, is a pretty decent starting back 5 for any rugby league team. I might have Tane Tuaupike at fullback. Wahine, Lesniak and Montoya on the wings, Nickel Clocksdale and Pompey at the centres. Boom. But they were the players who left the field during those games. So it's not very useful. And it's just like, oh, I don't think the Warriors have played their best footy, but this is stuff we've talked about going back to round one when they lost to the Sharks at Mount Smart. It was clunky. It was just a messy game, and they weren't doing what they were doing last year, and that's been rinse and repeat every game, unless the Warriors are dealing with their second string team, then they win. So that's a bit confusing. But now we've had 2 games in which basically a strength of the Warriors has been ravaged with injuries to their outside backs, and they lost by 1 point to the Bulldogs. They lost by 2 points to the Raiders. Like, these aren't terrible losses. These are losses by small NRL margins in which they lost 3 players, then 2 players from their backline. The easiest way, I think, to lay this out is with the young debutant, or not a debutant anymore, Lekarhalasima. So his first 2 games of his NRL career, he has come on as a middle forward and he's finished playing centre. So that tells you all you need to know about the forces that the Warriors have been working up against. Lekarhalasima, I believe, he's on that Warriors bench because he does offer versatility and power. So he's kind of on the bench to offer cover at centre. Okay, if there's an injury at wing, we can push Ali Leotawa to wing and we can bring in Halasima at centre. He's not a centre. And you've seen it in both games. Like, yeah, he had a nice run at centre against the Bulldogs. Lekarhalasima isn't going to start NRL games at centre. He's on the bench to play a few minutes in the middle, maybe a few minutes on the bench, on the edge, and he can cover centre. First NRL game for Lekarhalasima, 37 minutes. Second NRL game for Lekarhalasima, 47 minutes. That's not the plan. Like, when Andrew Webster's selecting Lekarhalasima on the bench, his plan is probably 10 to 15 minutes, real powerful, impactful footy off the bench, give him a break, maybe come on for another 10 minutes later in the game. That's the plan. Instead, Lekarhalasima's played 37 minutes, 47 minutes, most of which was at centre. So the latest Warriors debutant, he tells the story of the battle the Warriors have been in their last 2 games. One was a 1-point loss, another was a 2-point loss. Unfortunately, they're both losses, and the Warriors probably won't make the finals. But I don't think this is a situation where we need to rip into the Warriors. Because they keep showing up, they keep smashing blokes. Yeah, there's some skill execution, and again, this isn't necessarily a fault of the Warriors. Because the skill execution I'm talking about is kicking. Who's your best kicker? Shaun Johnson, he's not there. Te Maire Martin is a good halfback. He's a good half. He's a good rugby league player. He's not one of the best kickers in the Warriors team. General play kicking, I reckon Chanel Harris-Tavita is a better kicker than Te Maire Martin. So the major flaw that I've got in these 2 games, which I compare to the All Blacks, when you've got Damian McKenzie, Geordie Barrett, Beauden Barrett, you got left foot kicking, you got right foot kicking, you got long kicking, you got bendy kicking, you got short kicking, you got chip and volley kicking. You've got every type of kicking covered. I mean, Geordie Barrett, Beauden Barrett, Damian McKenzie, that's probably the best 3 kickers you can put together in the world. That's how the All Blacks won test matches against England. Tough, rugby union footy. But we don't talk about it very often, but it was clear that their kicking and their control of the games won those tests against England. Really entertaining rugby union. 2 losses for the Warriors, It's the opposite. It's poor kicking that has been the biggest factor in those defeats outside of the dark forces with the injuries and whatnot. But it's not that surprising when you're missing your best kicker. All of which comes together in a nice boil up of like, ugh. Like we shouldn't be in this zone of mediocrity, but we are. And you just kind of got to deal with it. But like, this is not a time to be depressed or down in the dumps about the Warriors, because things continue to look like there's a very positive outlook, and they just need to hang in there, grind through these next few games, maybe get a few results, get a bit of more footy into some of the youngsters and whatnot, and just have a bit of fun. Move on from this double whammy of games, which was just diabolically sad. There we go. I tried my best to describe those two losses and had a crack. Diabolically sad.
Yeah, I almost wonder if we haven't got a few, I don't know, like lingering remnants of the old curse, the Warriors curse rearing its ugly head again. And at times when it's less their fault. Like in the past, it's felt like this team was cursed because they couldn't get out of their own way. Like they couldn't get the ducks in the row. They couldn't get a sort of functioning top to bottom and bottom back to top, as above so below kind of organization. They have that. Like they had that last year. They have it now. It's quite clear under Andrew Webster. They've established that. Just haven't quite I don't know, get this burn a bit of sage through the training ground or something. I don't know. Get something. But calling the Exorcist, there's some stuff left over. Like, I mean, one of the things you notice when you go to an NRL game is when the teams are doing their warm-ups beforehand, the kicker will always go and nail a few from the sideline, kick a few from in front, like off the tee kind of thing. Whoever the goal kicker is, they're always practicing. You might get your second choice guy having a nudge as well. Not too often. That guy's probably taken a few after training and during the week just to stay fresh. But you're kind of prioritizing the guy you expect will actually be kicking the goals. Your third choice kicker, who's actually the fourth choice kicker at the club and who wasn't even necessarily in the top 17 for a lot of the season, is not. And you could just tell there was no confidence when Chanel Harris-Tavita stepped up had missed the first couple. One of them was shocking, like didn't even make it to the goal line, just went across the face. And second one was close, but he still missed. And when the third one, which was the only one which was, would consider easy for an NRL level goal kicker, you could just see it in his eyes. You see this in football sometimes when you go to a penalty shootout. It's like there's a dude who steps up and he's just not going to score. You can just see it there. There's fear in the eyes. There's panic in the soul. There's like they just rush everything. It's they don't look up. It's always looking down, and it's just you can tell sometimes someone is just like the nerves are fried, and he had that. And the way he kicked it, like the way he physically kicked it, is not a goal kicker's technique at all. And that's not even his technique. Like he can kick those a lot better than that. He almost just tried to chip it over, like doing a little he almost looked like a right-footed Lionel Messi trying to bend around the defensive wall or something like that, which
he is left-footed.
He didn't do. There was no bend. Yeah, sorry. I'm picturing that wrong in my head.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so he shaves it around which he's just, I don't know. If he'd been kicking from the other side, like that's the one thing, is I think all three of his kicks are from the left side. So if you are a left-footed, that is the side where it sort of fades away, which is perhaps a little bit trickier. But you could just, I don't know, you could just see like his technique abandoned him completely. But even before he placed the ball, he had bad feelings because you could see it in his face, like he wasn't confident, and that's the dark forces. I don't know what else you want to call it. It's the lingering curse. It's just he was put in a position where the game basically was on the line. There was to tie the game up late on, He's put in a situation that he hadn't prepared for and wasn't ready for. And of course he hadn't prepared for it. Of course he wasn't ready for it because it was such a small opportunity that would come around to being his responsibility. But somehow that happened in this game. And somehow it was his responsibility. And it just, yeah, it's a tough one. But I also feel like that not for the first time this season, the Warriors let their opponents get off to a quick start as well. Like they gave the Raiders scored the first couple tries, and the Warriors felt like the better team from that point onwards. But you give the other team a head start, you leave yourself in the situation, you play from behind, you leave yourself in that situation where you might need to kick a goal and you might miss it at the end, and that might cost you the game as well. Like it's one of those things where it's harsh on a dude to have to stand there in the spotlight and be and feel like it was your fault that you lost the game, but it's never one person's fault, is it? And there was aspects throughout that thing which just it's weird because yeah, like you said, a lot of that game was really good and they lost. And they now I won't say they're out of the top eight nudge, but I think they're probably going to have to win borderline every game from this point onwards. And they're not playing like a team that can do that. Because I looked this up just before, just to check, because I had an inkling, and yeah, like start of the season, lost by 4 points to the Sharks. They had a 4 point loss to the Storm. That's old mate scoring in the corner right at the end. They drew with the Seagulls, 3 point loss to the Titans first time they played them. 60 point loss to the Titans second time they played them. So that's the flip side. A lot of close losses, but also I think what was probably the biggest loss in the club's history or something close to that. There was a 6 point loss to the Knights. That's a one-score game. And then this last couple weeks, last couple games anyway, with a bye in between, there was a 1 point loss to the Dogs and a 2 point loss to the Raiders. Like that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. The Warriors have a record this season of 7 wins, 1 tie, and 10 losses. Of those 11 games that they didn't win, 7 of them were what you would call one-score games. You know, where one converted try swings things back in their favor, which is a lot. And I don't know, sometimes it's not your day. Maybe sometimes it's just not your season as well. That's what has cost the Warriors this season, is an inability for different reasons throughout the way. There's different reasons why this has been the case. Sometimes it's them not quite timing the comeback. Sometimes it's the Storm scoring an incredible try in the last moment. But they've struggled to win these close games throughout, and yeah, I don't know. You can't get those points back, and there's a stage where you've just dropped too many of them to be able to recover from that.
The forces don't get much darker than the yips. And maybe everyone there has just got the yips at the moment. I was interested in the Broncos. They had a good win over the Knights, and I've written about Jordan Ricky. He is, like, statistically, he's kind of having his best season. He's only got 2 tries. He had 7 tries last year, so not quite the same ballpark there. But he's already got 5 line breaks this year compared to 4 last year. And he's played 16 games compared to 22 games last year. He's already got 5 offloads. He had 7 offloads in 18 games in 2021. So he's on track to beat that marker. He's tackled over 90% in every NRL season. And he's 86 meters per game is a career high. He's gone from 44 meters, 72 meters, 76 meters, 80 meters, now 86 meters. So Jordan Rickey's just solid. He is doing career best stuff, but he's not someone you would necessarily, like, I just don't think he puts up funky enough stats and big enough performances to become like a eye-catching talent, but he does his role, and he does his role extremely well for the Broncos. I also wrote, so he's averaging 34.1 tackles per game, which is a career high as well. And he's playing 77.3 minutes per game, which is a career high as well. Now, the Broncos also have Xavier Willison, big man ting from Taharoa in the Waikato. He was pretty impressive against the Knights. Jesse Arthurs has come back into the team on the wing. But what I'm interested here is Dean Mariner's role, because he was awesome against the Knights playing centre. And he has moved from wing to centre for the last few games. But the Broncos have all sorts of outside back depth. So like Corey Oates was playing on the wing. Corey Oates and Jesse Arthurs were playing on the wing against the Knights, but there's no Selwyn Cobbo. So does Selwyn Cobbo return and Dean Mariner goes to the wing? Does Selwyn Cobbo go to the wing and Dean Mariner stays at centre? Because coming through the grades in Aotearoa, like when he was playing, I think it was Marist under 15s, he was playing centre. When he went to the Broncos playing for Wynnum in Queensland Cup, he was playing centre. He is a centre who, as I always say, you need versatility to earn your NRL game time. He is a centre who does a job on the wing to play NRL. But his best position is centre. But the Broncos have Katoni Staggs and Selwyn Cobbo as really good centres. So I'm curious what happens with Dean Mariner over the next few weeks, especially as the Broncos are chasing finals footy. Also, good win for the Melbourne Storm. They got Jerome Hughes playing at a high level. No Nelson Asafa-Solomona, but they do have Will Warbrick. He's come back on the wing. He looks excellent as a winger. The one and only Alec McDonald. He is always busy. He was in that game against the Roosters, just ripping around the middle. Lots of effort, lots of mahi. And then you've got the Aotearoa A lads, Joe Chan and Jack Howarth. Jack Howarth is now starting centre for Melbourne Storm, and given that he came up through the Queensland rugby league pipeline before representing, I think he might have played for the Maldives at one point, and then he played for New Zealand A. One would assume that Jack Howarth is just going to go straight into the Queensland, like keep going with Queensland. But he did opt for New Zealand A, so that is something to keep an eye on. Joe Chan, his father played for the Kiwis back in the day, I believe, but I think he was born and raised in Sydney, and then he went to France, where his father was working with Catalans, I think. But at least he has that father connection. Like the dudes with whānau links to the Kiwis. Dudes with whānau links to the Kiwis, their dad played for the Kiwis, their uncles played for the Kiwis. They usually pursue the Kiwis. So I'm curious what Joe Chan does, because he's probably eligible for New South Wales and maybe Samoa or something as well. So watch out for those two. Because Joe Chan also played for New Zealand A last year. I think Joe Chan is more likely to pursue Aotearoa Kiwis than Jack Howarth. But if Jack Howarth wants to, obviously, more the merrier for the Aotearoa Kiwis depth pool. Today is Teamless Tuesday, so we will stay tuned to see how the first round of NRLW Teamless look. This is another bumper season of NRLW footy. Always say it, this is without the Warriors. So we've got Black Ferns, we've got Black Ferns Sevens players, and we've got youngsters from Aotearoa who are being recruited from Australian teams. All of that's happening. Massive increases in the women involved from Aotearoa without the Warriors. And without the Bulldogs, who are one of the busiest recruitment teams of women from Aotearoa, especially the youngsters. So stay tuned for next season to worry about that. But what I am curious is we've got Stacey Walker, who played for the Black Ferns Sevens. Now she joins the Broncos. So I'm curious what position she plays, and that Broncos team is stacked with Aotearoa Wahine. Gail Broughton's another Black Ferns Sevens player. Mele Hofunga, Aneta Nu'uasala. Tafito Lafa'ele played for the Black Ferns. There's a lot there. Lavinia Gould is a veteran. You got Brianna Clark, who has played for the Kiwi Ferns before. So I'm curious what position and what role Stacey Waka has and how that Broncos team performs, because they love Aotearoa Wahine. Also got Grace Kukutai and Isabella Waterman. They're both from Rugby Union in Aotearoa, and they join the back-to-back champion Newcastle Knights. Not all of the Wahine have played in both championships, but last year we had Abigail Roach dominating, Lyshawn Albert-Jones was really good, Nita Maynard was good, Shanice Parker was good, and that's a very good Newcastle Knights NRLW system, who have brought in 2 players from Super Rugby Aupiki, Grace Kukutai and Isabella Waterman. We've also got Rosie Kelly, Black Ferns first 5. She's with the Eels, so I'm just curious what role she plays. If she's in the halves, that would be very exciting, because then we got more halves for the Kiwi Ferns. Racine McGregor and Tyler King will play for the Dragons, and if we can get another couple of halves developing, that will be very good for the Kiwi Ferns. Friendly reminder, Aotearoa Kiwis and Kiwi Ferns, their last games were wins over Australia. Keep that in mind when we've got all this Australia hype. And the Raiders. Raiders have so much talent from Aotearoa. Mackenzie Wiki, Kirihitina Matua, Shael Robbins-Retty, Madison Bartlett, Api Nichols. You've got the Quinlan sisters, Ash and Felice Quinlan. And now the Raiders also have Tatiana Finau, who is a youngster from Aotearoa, who, like the Bulldogs initially brought the Tawaniai sisters from Wellington and some other players like Tatiana Finau. But of course, there's no NRLW team for the Bulldogs. So all the Bulldogs' hard work provides players for their NRLW teams. Tatiana Finau is a youngster from Aotearoa. She's a rugby league youngster. So she's one of these players who is now benefiting from NRLW expansion, where they are putting more recruitment into Aotearoa, and someone like Tatiana Finau can step up to NRLW. So I'm curious if Tatiana Finau gets into the Raiders top 17. Hopefully do a big preview before this weekend's games with once we know where the selections and all the bits and pieces about this first round of NRL Wahine football, which is far more exciting than the White Ferns. Funnily enough, the White Ferns are kind of like the Breakers, because the Breakers do not represent Aotearoa in any way, shape or form. They are the Aussie Breakers, they're the American Breakers, they're any type of Breakers except for the Aotearoa Breakers. The White Ferns, they don't represent the best cricketers from New Zealand. And funnily enough, when you're not selecting the best cricketers from Aotearoa, you're going to get swept in England, 8-0. And you're going to be losing lots of games. And shout out to our newsletter. On Friday, you did a nice little exploration of Ben Sawyer's dodgy coaching record, to the point where it feels like he's a bit of a schemer.
Fraud.
He's out here just tricking people into getting jobs. So in your newsletter, you broke down his last season with Birmingham Phoenix and Royal Challengers Bangalore, I believe.
Which were both after he took the White Ferns job as well.
So both of those were in 2023, the last seasons of those. And as you said, both teams, well, no, he's going back to Birmingham with Sophie Devine and Susie Bates. So we're very interested to see how he goes there, because, yeah, just curious. We'll see.
Sophie Devine's been at a few of these teams with him recently, but
yeah.
I think this is the first time Bates has played for him at a franchise level. Although she did move to the Sydney Sixers after he left, weirdly.
Yeah. So his T20 gigs last year, and then the White Ferns in T20 cricket last summer onwards, Ben Sawyer as a T20 coach is 4-24. 4 wins, 24 losses. In his last 2 franchise T20 gigs, And then White Ferns T20 cricket, obviously last summer started with a series defeat to Pakistan in New Zealand. So Ben Sawyer, T20 coach extraordinaire, his last dose of, like, from last summer onwards with the White Ferns, last two T20 gigs, he's 4-24. This is why he feels like a schemer. Because he's not winning, but he's got jobs.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that when I broke it down. I just did this overall in the newsletter, this overall record with the White Ferns in both formats. But they started all right because his first tour was the Commonwealth Games where they won a bronze medal, where they did, they lost a couple games during that tournament, but they also won a bronze playoff against England.
They beat England in the bronze medal game with a very similar team that just got swept in England.
Yeah. Once I guess the influence hadn't quite taken over yet, although, that's, if I say that, it's also saying that a Bob Carter team must have, the influence that makes his team lose. But, the thing that stood out when I say stood, a lot of things stood out when I compiled those stats, but like, one thing, I was expecting the bad records because I knew to look for it. But the one thing that also stood out is when I was looking at it and it said, like, because I wanted to see what they emphasized when they announced him. But the thing I noticed there is also when they announced him was like June or July 2022, and they said he's coming in on a 2-year contract. And it's been 2 years since then. And I don't know have you heard anything of like extensions or anything like that? I would imagine 2 years doesn't necessarily mean to the day when it was announced. It probably means, like, if I had to guess, I would say the contract runs up until the end of the T20 World Cup. That's in, I think, October or September or something. Is there anything else on that? Like, have you actually, because I meant to ask you this, like, have you heard, so like, was there a sneaky update I missed or anything like that? Or do we potentially have a expiring contract on our hands?
To be fair, I don't really look into the old schema too much. But it would, both situations are ridiculous, right? You kick the coach out just prior to a T20 World Cup, or you give a losing coach a T20 World Cup. Like, there's no wins there. Either way,
even the third option of wait till they do bad at the T20 World Cup and then fire him, it's like, well, you've wasted a T20 World Cup if you do that. Like, there's no good option here.
Best case scenario, which isn't the best case scenario because it leaves you minimal preparation time for the T20 World Cup. Fire Ben Sawyer, don't renew his contract, and hope for the mandatory post Ben Sawyer bump, where teams start winning once Ben Sawyer leaves. I am quite actually really maybe kind of will be interested in the Birmingham Phoenix now. And they start the 100 tomorrow morning. And that's in the bubble of the White Ferns, the Ben Sawyer schema. I never really understood the snake-oiled salesman thing. I
think the idea is snake oil doesn't work. So the guy who sells it is selling you something that is a faulty product, con artist type stuff.
Yeah, shitbag.
Yeah.
I prefer schemer. Sawyer the schemer. Sawyer the schemer. Scheme and Sawyer. It just rolls better. In the bubble of the White Ferns and scheming Sawyer, I'm really interested in what happens with the Birmingham Phoenix in the 100. In the context of cricket around the world, couldn't care less about the 100. And I would say all these T20 leagues, or a lot of them, like there's only a couple. Maybe the IPL and Big Bash League. Most of the T20 leagues, and remember, all these T20 leagues were meant to, kick cricket, the foundation of cricket in the face, revolutionary T20 leagues. Most of these T20 leagues just don't hit the mark. Like, who's fizzed up for the 100? Who's fizzed up for MLC? Like, casual cricket fans aren't really fizzed up, and I don't really see them taking over anytime soon. So, but it seems like it's that time of year where everyone gets their knickers in a twist about these this plethora of T20 leagues that are just eating each other up. That's all. That's the only change that's happening, is this T20 league is eating this T20 league because they're happening at the same time. They're competing for the same players. Meanwhile, little old New Zealand, we just keep battling. Like, these leagues just offer a bit of a pay for the Black Caps, and we just keep chilling. It's all good. So everyone's a winner except for USA Cricket, which seems to be floating up Schitt's Creek. So the 100's happening. So shout out to the 100, shout out to the Birmingham Phoenix and Sawyer the Schemer. Outside of that, I do not care about these T20 leagues unless Zach Folks and Nathan Smith are playing. Then I'm a bit more curious. So that's a nice little zone there. But the most important men's cricket thing is the domestic cricket contracts. And we did discuss this on Thursday. I can roll through some thoughts on the 5 funky movers, which I did write about. But do you have any questions, any follow-up thoughts from the domestic cricket contracts that were announced last Thursday?
Short answer is no. I have no follow-up questions or thoughts, but I do want to hear about the 5 funky movers.
Rob O'Donnell, he's gone to Northern Districts. Leo Carter's going to Otago. Funnily enough, both are moving 1 spot south.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
Technically, Northern Districts goes north of Auckland as well, but Rob O'Donnell is moving from Auckland to Hamilton/Bay Oval. So he is going 1 stop south on the Aotearoa subway thing that I just made up. So there he's going 1 spot south. It's Leo Carter, like, Otago need a veteran batsman. Maybe Leo Carter can be the captain for Otago as well. That's something to keep an eye on. But Rob O'Donnell going to Northern Districts makes them, I think they're a team to watch out for, because especially T20 cricket. Rob O'Donnell, excellent T20 batter. And he was Auckland's best Ford Trophy and Super Smash batter, I believe, last summer. So he's taking that to Northern Districts. And he's going to be batting alongside Jeet Raval, Henry Cooper, Joe Carter, maybe a bit of Brett Hampton, Rob O'Donnell. Brett Hampton just whacking sixes. Rob O'Donnell averaging around 40 in T20 batting. That seems like a good combo. But I think Rob O'Donnell, the way it was presented was that he wants to, it seems like a similar type of move to a Michael Bracewell. Cole McConchie hasn't moved, but he's stepped into Black Caps cricket in recent years. I think that is what Rob O'Donnell is eyeing up. It's just to take his game to the next level and push for some Black Caps opportunities. So that's interesting. Neither of them are that funky though. Like, they're just, like, veterans change every year. But then we have Liam Dudding moving to Wellington from Central Districts. So Central Districts have lost Adam Milne to Wellington, but he's dipped out of the contracts for this year. And then Liam Dudding's made the same move, but it's no impact to Central District's bowling attack. There's still Doug Bracewell, Blair Tickner. You still got Josh Clarkson. Sorry, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. I've got the contracts right here, so let's have a look. Brett Randall, really good seamer as well. So Central Districts don't really lose a lot, despite losing 2 seamers 1 stop south themselves. With Liam Dudding going to Wellington, Wellington need a really good seamer, and I think that's why Liam Dudding is going to Wellington. They do have Nathan Smith, But in the like Ian McPeak, Michael Snedden, Logan Van Beek, solid domestic performers, not necessarily destructive leaders of a seam attack. Liam Dudding, averaging 24 in first class bowling, is someone who can slot in as a first 11 seamer for Wellington. So watch out for him. We got Bevan Jacobs going back to Auckland. Talked about this a lot on Thursday, how powerful Bevan Jacobs is as a batter. He showed that in Ford Trophy and Super Smash last year. I think he had a Super Smash strike rate of 178 in his first campaign. What I'm interested with Bevan Jacobs, Bevan John Jacobs, BJ Jacobs, BJJ, is whether he can develop into a Plunkett Shield batter. And this is an interesting marker for a lot of young cricketers, bat and ball. They will usually excel in one format, and then you need to see them grow their game into the other formats. So someone like Thorne Parks or Curtis Heafy, Otago and CD youngsters respectively, really good batters. I think Thorne Parks averages 50 odd in list day batting, and Curtis Heafy's got a really good first class record. Neither of them has expanded into T20 Super Smash batting. So that's their next kind of growth steps. Whereas BJJ, he's going the other direction. Can he settle as a Plunkett Shield batter? Gritty, patient, clinical. And he's got that opportunity with Auckland, so it'll be interesting to see how he goes for Auckland after making his debut for Canterbury last year. And of course, Matt Rowe has moved to Canterbury. He hasn't, I don't think he's actually played domestic cricket, but he came up through the Central Districts pipeline, played for the under-19s earlier this year, and he's got the old scholarship nod, Lincoln University scholarship, so that's a Canterbury classic. But watching a bit of footage of him, lovely outswing, pretty tall unit. He is someone who has the skills to thrive with Canterbury. And all those Canterbury seamers, whether they've all the Canterbury seamers, because Kyle Jamison's gone back to Canterbury, you've still got Will O'Rourke there. All those dudes move the ball. Zach Folks swings it into right-handers. Henry Shipley swings it into right-handers. You got Michael Ray's a bit more a classic outswing. Matt Rowe is classic outswing. Sean Davies a bit more of a nibbler. Fraser Sheets a classic outswing bowler as well. Every year I seem to be fascinated by the Canterbury seam attack. This time last year I was kind of building into curiosity about Will O'Rourke, Kyle Jamison, Henry Shipley all together. Henry Shipley didn't play a lot of cricket last summer though. So now we're getting Henry Shipley back into the groove, hopefully, injury permitting. But even if Henry Shipley doesn't play, maybe Matt Rowe plays. And there's no shortage of players in that Canterbury region. So the fact that Matt Rowe does have a contract is quite insightful, I believe. Because someone like Cameron Paul, one of the Darfield dudes, he looked really good in his Ford Trophy appearances last summer. He was a recent New Zealand under-19 cricketer as well, but he doesn't have a contract, right? Matt Rowe has a contract. So that is to say, Canterbury have another excellent seamer right there in Cameron Paul, but Matt Rowe must have made some certain impressions or shown some sort of skill set that commanded a contract.
Yeah, and I would imagine there's not very many players of that age range getting contracts anyway, right? Like across all of the domestic franchises, there wouldn't be too many teenagers who are getting there that quickly. There would be, the teenagers who play now and then, but they'd be playing without a contract, or they'd be in the A team or whatever to go straight into the yeah into the cauldron like that is it's sort of like what we were saying before about the young dudes who are able to get minutes in the NBL. It's like that's a signifier, right? That's an impression to be aware of when that kind of thing is happening.
I'd say it's very rare for a under 19 cricketer to get a contract straight after an under 19 World Cup in New Zealand, because there's just so many good cricketers that you're not going to give out a contract. Like most of these regions don't have a contract for a youngster. Now, again, contracts aren't that important. The domestic cricket contracts are important to me because they serve as the official kind of transfer market thing. Domestic cricket contracts tell me which players have moved. That's it. But a lot of cricketers will play without a contract. So the contracts are important in telling us who's moving where, because there's no other information, right? Like unless you got your ear to the street and you're down at your local nets every day going like, yeah, where's this guy going? What's that guy doing? You've got no
What's
idea.
Rob O'Donnell doing in Hamilton? Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know until the contracts are announced. But as far as, yeah, I don't want to go too deep into, because maybe someone else plays ahead of Matt Rowe for Canterbury all season, but they don't have a contract. So it's just something to keep an eye on and keep in mind as we roll into the cricketing summer. But before we get to the domestic cricket summer, we've got a lot of Black Caps Test cricket coming, so that'll be fun. And of course, the 100, the MLC, the Lankan Premier League, the Pakistani League, and all this other stuff happening around the world. None of which is as interesting as the scheme in Sawyer. Olympic football is coming. You got some preview notes for us. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the... Who's playing first? The men are playing first against Guinea. What do you reckon about the Ollie Whites? First game against Guinea. Is that... Like compared to the women who are playing Canada, well, that's classic underdog stuff. Where do the men stand coming up against Guinea?
They will have some classic underdog stuff against France and USA to follow this, and like, yeah, I don't know what Guinea's like at under 23s football. I couldn't tell you. But I suspect that this is our most winnable opportunity. And the men did get out of their group last Olympics. They had a simpler group than this, but they did progress from their group into a quarterfinal where they lost on penalties against Japan, against the hosts. So there's a little bit of pedigree there, and if they're going to do something similar here, probably going to involve having to get a result against the USA, but also they'll need to beat Guinea first up. Like this is what sets up their whole tournament. If they lose to Guinea, even if they draw, it makes it a very uphill battle. But a win against Guinea first up, and suddenly you're thinking, well, if we can get something out of one of these other two games, and it's going to be tough. Those are the underdog games, but there is an opportunity to do something pretty cool there if they can manage that. It is like in that case, from that perspective, it's cool that this game is first up, so you can start with your most competitive game, but also it's a little bit tricky because like Joe Bell played yesterday for his club in Norway. He probably just got into Paris right about the time we're recording, like maybe a little bit early. I don't know. He was flying out the next day, so Monday Norwegian time. So
I hope he gets
he's
his
getting there.
Ponamu.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They've done a lot of that stuff already. I hope I'm sure they saved it for him. But yeah, he missed out on the photo opportunity, and Michael Boxall was the same. This the Michael Boxall one's weird because like these are two guys that they weren't intending to have there. They're two of their overage players, so they were late notice negotiations, and they kind of had to concede to the clubs on a few of these things. And the MLS is taking a break over the Olympics, but the break only just started like yesterday. So United were like, "Yeah, you can have Michael Boxall. We don't need him for the League's Cup. That's fine. With that's just a silly like knockoff competition with Sweet As here, but." We don't want him to miss any MLS games, so we're gonna keep him, and he's gonna play 3 games in 7 days. Then he's gonna fly to Paris, potentially play 3 games in like 7 to 10 days or something like that for the Ollie Whites, and then he'll get a little bit of a break afterwards. Depending, well, I mean, it might be more than that if we progress in the tournament, but he will get a little bit of a break after that because I think the MLS doesn't start for another month or something. So tough yarns for a what is he like 35-year-old centre back, I think. However, it wasn't quite as bad as it could have been because he the second of those 3 games in a week, they were trying to score from a corner. He was hanging up there. This ball gets swung into the 6-yard box. He's tussling with his defender who's marking him. He swings sort of managed to swing around the corner, attack towards that near post, and just run straight into the goalkeeper and shoulder barges him to the turf. Boxall actually fell over first, but the keeper was the one who stayed down and looked a little bit of pain. He was all right in the end. Um, but he got booked for that. And that was his 6th yellow card of the season. So the 3rd game in 7 days he was suspended for. He didn't have to play it. So that's good for the Ollie Whites. However, he didn't fly early. He was still there at the ground in the stands watching on, supporting his dudes. So, but at least he didn't have the minutes in the legs. So neither Bell or Boxall's been involved in any of their preparations. They're only just arriving now. Ben Old is out injured, but New Zealand football are doing the dumb thing of not telling us or waiting to see or whatever. Well, there's nothing to decide because the French media already said that Saint-Étienne decided he has an ankle injury. They've changed their mind. They don't want him to go. He didn't play in their most recent, which was their first preseason game. He didn't play in that. The coach apparently said he's hoping to have him available for the next game. Well, that obviously clashes with the Olympics as well. So sounds like we might have been stiffed on that one. But that's what the alternates are there for. That's what Lachlan Bayliss or Liam Gillian or whoever is around for in case of that eventuality. And to be honest, I kind of like I'm not 100% sure Ben Old was the first 11 player for this squad. Like if you're trying to get Matt Garbutt and Joe Bell into a midfield with Sarpreet Singh as well, like where do you play Ben Old? Do you check him out on the wing? Do you check Singh or Garbutt out on the wing? Like there's options, there's ways that could have worked, but I'm not sure that was 100%. Obviously, it damages their depth, but so it goes. There's also Henry Gray as the other one of the 22 players who hasn't arrived. He is the alternate goalkeeper, and it sounds like I assumed he was just going to because he's with Ipswich Town. They've just been promoted to the Premier League. He's trying to hang around and prove that he's good enough to stay in the Premier League squad, or maybe he's trying to audition for a loan out to an EFL club down the division slightly. Either way, he's trying to progress his career. And they're in Austria at the moment doing preseason stuff. So I assumed he was just going to stay there until the last possible moment. But old Piney popped up in the mentions yesterday saying that Baisley had told him in an interview that Gray's probably going to stay with Ipswich throughout. And if one of the goalies gets injured, he'll fly in. If not, he'll just stay with Ipswich. He's coming from they're in Austria at the moment. I assume they go back to England at some point. These are short flights to get to Paris. It's not a big drama. He could get there like the day after anything happens. So I can understand that. I also think maybe you could have just picked a different goalkeeper if that's how you want to do it. Like you're not likely to need the alternate goalie anyway. Why not just take Albie Kelly-Hill or something like that, but whatever. This is how Darren Baisley tends to operate. Is he's a little bit, he's quite forgiving with the clubs in those kind of negotiations. I almost wish you'd stamp his foot down a little bit more, but you gotta play the environment, Yeah, well, you gotta let the dudes know that you're taking this seriously, right? But this, probably not going to see Ben Old, but there's still going to be an all right squad, and it's not as good as we hoped it would be because of no Stamenic, no Matt Dibley-Diaz, but we'll see how they go against Guinea. That'll give us a good indication of how they're tracking for the tournament. They did lose a game to Uzbekistan in warm-ups recently. Seems to be the only warm-up game they've played. Don't love the sound of that because that's very Black Caps T20 World Cup stuff. Let's not bother to prepare. It's fine. Whereas Uzbekistan have played like 5 or 6. And Uzbekistan, to be fair, that sounds like a terrible result, but they scored in the last minute to win it, and also scored twice in the last minute. I think they was 1-1 late in that game and they lost 3-1. But Uzbekistan are actually really quite strong within the Asian Confederation and youth football these days. And not just like one golden generation. They've been winning under 17s tournaments, under 20s, under 23s teams pretty good. Like these are different players throughout these squads. So fair play to them. They did beat us. They were more prepared. Hopefully the Ollie Whites are in a better shape for Guinea because, yeah, that game, if they lose that, then we're just going to hang out and enjoy the Olympic experience, sweet as. But if they win that, they got a shot at qualifying for the next round, and that's really something to play for against France and USA.
And Finn Surman's deal to Portland has become official.
Indeed. And he will he will link up with them afterwards. It was funny seeing the Portland unveiling that in that little video. It's like day 1 in Portland. It's like, you filmed this 2 weeks ago, bro. He's in Paris right now. We know this because we've sent photos for ages. But
And
good yarns that.
And the Finn Surman.
Yeah. The thing like where Sir, he's our man. Like, how do you pronounce these words in America? Is this something I've missed? Or do they not just, they don't know how to say sermon? I'm not sure. But yeah, no, it's a nice he'll link up with them after the Olympics, and hopefully he'll get MLS minutes before the season is over. I'm looking at their thing, and they started terribly under Phil Neville, new coach Phil Neville, who's one of those Ben Sawyer scheming type coaches who seems to get a lot of gigs he doesn't quite seem qualified for. But they've actually come good in the last 2 months. They've had some good results leading up to the League's Cup break, and we'll be pushing for playoffs when they come back. However, it doesn't really seem like they've had a stable centre-back combination throughout. And that might be an opportunity for Finn Surman to swoop in. What I definitely could see from their centre-back rotation is that everyone is at least 27 years old. One guy is turning 37 soon and expected to retire. So they definitely wanted to get younger in that position, and that's part of why Finn Surman has popped up there as well. And it sounds like the initial thing was reported by one of the Australian websites, and they said, so I'm guessing that's an agent leaking something there. They said that the Phoenix would receive a nominal fee, was the word. Or nominal just sounds like make a gold coin donation kind of fee. However, I think it was Rollo on Stuff said that it was a top 3 Wellington Phoenix incoming transfer, which means it's third. Like, we know the first one is Alex Paulson, the second one it sounds like is Ben Old. So I think the Phoenix's 3 biggest ever transfers, all of them beating the fees that they got for Singh and Kakache, therefore, have come in the last couple months. That is good money for the club at a time when the A-League itself has absolutely quartered the amount that they contribute towards salaries. Whereas I think in the NRL, the league itself pays, just gives every team $10 million or whatever it is to pay the salary cap. Anything on top of that, obviously, that's your club. You figure that out, but they'll pay the salary cap themselves. The A-League used to do that. Now they're paying not even a quarter of it. So they've absolutely slashed the central funding. But the Phoenix have covered that. They're more than made up for that just by selling 3 of their best players. So great impression of how that transfer strategy, that whole club strategy of developing players to be able to sell them is already working for them. Just got to hope the next generation is as good as the previous generation, but that's the trick. That's the game. That's what they're going for. And also, let's not forget Macy Fraser, A-League record women's transfer as well. So it's not just the men's team that's bringing in the money.
And a lot of the youngsters will be on display in the Ollie White's Olympic campaign.
Definitely.
We also, speaking of Wellington Phoenix woman and transfers, Brianna Edwards, she's gone to Sydney. And Kate Taylor's gone somewhere in France by the looks of that language.
Is that new or
Yeah, it was a couple hours ago.
okay? Well, it was a couple hours ago while I was doing other stuff. Let me check that up. I've been waiting to see where
Dijon.
Kate Taylor was going to go. Dijon? Is that?
Dijon
Ah, yeah.
FCO.
Kate Taylor, un Kiwi au DFCO. Le DFCO officiel poursuit son recrutement, etc., etc. Yeah, nice. Big deal. That's slapping a retweet on that one. And
I've
I'll go
never
back and
heard
add that
of
into Flying Kiwis leaping.
like a lot of people say Dejan Arce, Eels player. They call him Mustard for because it
Dijon
is
must, yeah, yeah.
obviously Australians. They don't really understand spelling, so it's kind of a bit like Dijon. But these guys are actually Dijon. They're known as Dijon FCO. So
That's probably where the mustard came from. Like
ooh,
champagne. Dijon mustard is a traditional mustard of France named after the city of Dijon in Burgundy, France. Like Champagne is actually a region in France as well, you know? Like there's the French culinary legacy. Um, but I didn't that came up the wrong Dijon. I wanted a football club. I just want to check that they are in the top division in France, which I assume they are. Oh, the problem is you
uh,
search the club and they show you the men's team
Brianna
first. So.
Edwards and Kate Taylor, are they in the Olympic squad? Football Ferns?
Kate Taylor is. Brianna Edwards is not. Brianna Edwards would have been, but she had taken a break from football for a couple months there, and therefore, uh, just wasn't quite on the scene at the time when they were picking the squad. So Murphy Sheep snuck in ahead of her. They, yeah, that is Division One Feminine for Kate Taylor. So that's top division in France. That is Kate Taylor and Ben Old both going to top division French clubs. And I think the only previous players who played top division French football from Aotearoa are Bill Tuilomo, played a couple games for Marseille off the bench under the guidance, people forget this, under the guidance of the great Marcelo Bielsa, who was his coach back then. And Erin Naylor played a few years. She was at Lyon, but didn't play in the league. She was like a reserve goalkeeper there, and then she went to Bordeaux and had the best couple years of her career at that when she was in Bordeaux. So big yarns on both fronts. We just doubled our Kiwi top division French honors. Great for Kate Taylor. As for Brianna Edwards, she's got the Sydney FC move. It sounds like Jada Wyman, who's been their goalie for a few years, is going to move to Europe or America or something like that, which means that Edwards is getting potentially an opportunity to be the number one starting goalkeeper for the defending champions of the A-League Women's, which frankly, I'd love to see her stay at the Phoenix, but the Phoenix can't offer her that. The Phoenix, even before they signed an import goalkeeper, even if they said we can make you our starting goalkeeper, we'll sign, we'll use that import spot somewhere else. They can't offer her you're playing for the defending champions, the team who makes the finals every year. They can't offer that. That's that's something they would have to go out there and prove. But yeah, and also on top of that, of course, Brianna Edwards might be a New Zealand representative, but she was born and raised in Sydney. So this is also a hometown move for her as well. And when you think about someone who's stepped out of the last couple months of the previous season for I don't know if it's quite mental health issues or whatever, or it's just she needed a break at some point. It's moving back home seems like a nice alignment for that as well. So fair play. Like that's a good move, and the Phoenix will sign someone else to be their backup goalkeeper beyond Carolina Vial, Portuguese import, who's going to be their starting keeper, and sounds like someone who can play with their feet a little bit more than Riley Foster, which is a natural evolution in the small ball situation as well. That was something Paul Temple mentioned specifically in the the quotes in the press release about that transfer. So that's obviously something that was a strategy, a target. Yeah, Phoenix will sign some other Kiwi goalkeeper to be the backup. Maybe it'll be Amy Daniele, who made her debut last season. So no dramas there. It's like the NBL thing as well. The more Kiwis playing at Aussie clubs, the better. The Phoenix actually do sign Kiwi players, but because of that makes it even better than when Kiwi players are also playing for Aussie clubs, because that's just it's the more the merrier.
You got any final words on the Football Ferns versus Canada? Obviously, we're looking for a how the players play for the coach, the interim coach, the assistant coach, the replacement coach, whoever he is, Mr. Main. He is the coach of this Olympic campaign, so we'll be curiously observing how the football Ferns rally behind him. But it's a very difficult challenge coming up against Canada in the first game.
Yeah, Canada and Colombia and France in their group. So it's about as tough as it gets. And to see, like, every team is looking at them and saying, yeah, 3 points, sweet as. If they can avoid that fate of losing all 3 games, they've done fine. I'm like, we're getting carried away if we're thinking about whether they can make the knockouts or anything like that. I'd just like to see them, put in some good performances at a little bit of a, we don't know for certain because of the coaching uncertainty. We don't know that this is like a transitional period or anything for them, but it could prove to be a transitional period, in which case how the team goes out there and performs, how sort of locked in they seem, how motivated, how tactically, as much as anything, how tactically kind of all on the same page they are. Couple of little sort of, what do you call them, like selection things I'd be curious to see. Who starts on the wings is one thing, because I'm expecting to see a 4-4-2. That's what we've seen in all 3 games under Michael Main, and it's probably the best way to set up against 3 teams who are likely to dominate the ball and have you on defense a lot. I'd like to see who plays on the wings. You've got a few different options. I think Grace Jolly and Indy Riley would have been the 2 easy picks a few weeks ago, but Katie Kitchen's done really well in the last couple of tours and played there recently. You might also consider maybe someone like a Gabby Rennie, who's been in good club form and is someone who is going to go out there and work very hard and defensively cover her tracks and all this kind of stuff. So a few options there. And then also in the midfield, where you got Malia Steinmetz locked in. You got Macy Fraser coming back from an ankle injury, but should be fine and probably locked in. But you also got Kate Taylor there, and you might want Kate Taylor and Malia Steinmetz so that you've got like the 2 defensively really rugged and hard ball winning players. Taylor also quite good in the air at winning headers, which is helpful. And in that case, you'd probably slide Macy Fraser maybe further forward, maybe even play as a sort of as a secondary striker alongside Clegg, and you slide Jackie Hand out wide or off the bench or something. Like, you got a few options there, but I expect you will just see Steinmetz and Fraser, which is the best, most talented midfield duo we would have. But there is an idea over Kate Taylor as she settles into French football with the stint at the French Olympics. There is an idea about whether you can maybe slide her into that midfield as well, just to really solidify the defensive aspects of it. So there's a couple of little selection issues, and then maybe the starting goalkeeper might be one as well, whether you go Vic Hessen for the experience or Anna Leet for the probably better overall talent and has played a little bit more recently and plays at a higher level for a club. And I think it will just be Anna Leet, and I think it should be Anna Leet, but Vic Hessen's not going to steer you wrong if they decide to go that way as well, as someone who has played a little bit more at major tournaments, although Anna Leet did get a game or 2 at the last Olympics, if I recall correctly.
Beauty. That is the Niche Cast for the 23rd of July. Big up yourself. We will be back on Thursday with a subscriber podcast going deeper into Aotearoa sporting matters, so stay tuned if you're a member of the Patreon whānau, if you've got a paid Substack subscription. Otherwise, big up yourself, love yourself, kia kaha, stay beautiful, chur chur.